I used to tell people I had only one sibling, my older brother, Caleb. That wasn't true. But lying was easier than explaining the truth. You see, I did have a sister. Her name was Sophie. She was born 3 years after me, and when I was 11, she disappeared. Just like that. One night she was there, tiny and quiet, always clutching her stuffed bear. The next morning, gone. We never called the police. That should have been the first red flag. But I was 11. I thought adults knew what they were doing. I thought my father had reasons. He sat me and Caleb down at the kitchen table and said, in that low, slow voice that always meant danger, "Sophie's gone. She ran away. She's not coming back. And we don't talk about it. Ever." He didn't have to say it twice. Caleb nodded without looking up. I copied him. And from that day on, my sister became a ghost. No birthday candles. No missing person flyers. No grief. Just silence. Like she had never existed. But I remembered. I always remembered. Our house sat on the edge of a forest, the kind of place where you could scream and no one would hear. The backyard stretched into the trees, and near the fence line, there was a shed. A small, rotting structure with one window boarded up from the outside. I never asked about it. I wasn't supposed to. That was Dad's rule number 1, don't ask questions. But sometimes, when the wind was just right, I'd hear something from the shed. A thud. A faint cry. Or worse, nothing, followed by a sudden bang. I convinced myself it was animals. Raccoons, maybe. Maybe coyotes. Maybe ghosts. I didn't go near it. None of us did. Even Caleb, who was fearless and angry and twice my size, avoided it like it had teeth. 3 years passed. I turned 14. I learned how to live without asking anything. Without wondering why Dad always kept the shed locked with 3 heavy padlocks. Why he sometimes disappeared into the trees at night with a flashlight and a metal tray. Why we weren't allowed near the fence line. Why my mom stopped talking entirely. She was still alive. Technically. She cooked dinner, folded laundry, made no eye contact, and never smiled. She hadn't smiled since Sophie vanished. One night, I saw her standing in the kitchen, staring at the refrigerator with a blank expression. On the fridge were 3 photos, me, Caleb, and Dad. Sophie's had been burned. Literally. The corners were charred, like someone had taken a lighter to her face. I asked Mom once, in a whisper, if she missed Sophie. She blinked. Then turned back to the stove. That was the end of that. Then, one rainy October evening, everything changed. I had gotten home late from school, soaked and tired. Caleb was working the late shift at the gas station. Dad's truck wasn't in the driveway. Mom was in her usual state, half there, half not. I went upstairs to my room, peeled off my wet hoodie, and flopped onto the bed. That's when I heard it. A knock. Not at the door. At the window. My room was on the 2nd floor. I froze. Another knock. Louder. Urgent. I crept over and pulled the curtain aside. There was a girl out there. Clinging to the narrow ledge outside my window, barefoot and trembling. Her face pale. Hair matted. Eyes wide with panic. She mouthed a word I hadn't heard in years. Help! My chest locked. I stumbled back, tripped over my desk chair. My pulse roared in my ears. I ran to the window and yanked it open, grabbed her arms, and pulled her inside. She collapsed onto the floor like she hadn't stood upright in days. And then I saw her face. Sophie. Older. Thinner. Dirtier. But it was her. My little sister. The same blue eyes. Same tiny scar above her eyebrow from when she'd fallen off the porch swing. Except now she was shaking like a leaf in a thunderstorm. Dad, she whispered. He's coming back soon. You can't tell him. You can't let him know I got out. I didn't know what to say. My brain had stopped working. Sophie, where have you been? Her eyes flicked toward the window. Then the hallway. Then the floor. In the shed, she said. He kept me in the shed. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring at her. The words didn't make sense. The shed? No. That was impossible. That was just a broken-down building with spiders and old tools. Wasn't it? But Sophie was trembling, her arms covered in thin red scratches and angry welts. Her legs had bruises. Her bare feet were caked in mud. Her wrists had raw, pink lines, like from rope. She looked like a prisoner of war. Sophie, I said again, quieter. You've been in the shed this whole time? She nodded. 3 years. I sank to the floor beside her. The walls were suddenly too close, the air too thick. I couldn't breathe. He told me if I made a sound, he'd bury me in the woods, she whispered. I wasn't allowed to cry. I wasn't allowed to talk. If I tried, he'd bring the belt. I swallowed hard. I wanted to scream, to punch the wall, to run into the woods and never stop. But Sophie clutched my arm, her voice urgent again. You can't tell him. You can't tell Mom. She knows. She let it happen. But if he finds me out, I don't think I'll survive it again. What about Caleb? I asked. Does he know? She shook her head. I don't know. Maybe. I heard him once. Outside the shed. He walked past. I screamed. He didn't stop walking. A heavy silence wrapped around us. I didn't think anyone cared, she whispered. I thought I died. And you all just moved on. I touched her hand, gently. It was cold. So cold. No. No, Sophie. I swear I didn't know. I thought you were gone. He told us you ran away. Her face twisted, part disbelief, part pain, part something too complicated to name. I gave her clean clothes. One of my oversized sweatshirts and old joggers. She changed in the bathroom and came back out moving slowly, like her joints were made of glass. I wrapped her in blankets. Gave her peanut butter crackers. She devoured them like she hadn't eaten in days. Maybe she hadn't. And then I heard tires crunching in the driveway. Dad was home. My stomach flipped inside out. I told Sophie to hide in my closet. She nodded and scrambled toward it, her feet dragging slightly. I shoved my laundry basket in front of the door once she was in. Just in case. Seconds later, I heard the front door open. His heavy boots on the floorboards. The sound of keys hitting the counter. Then, silence. A long, thick, dangerous silence. I waited, barely breathing. Eventually, he called upstairs. Eli. You home? I tried to make my voice normal. Light. Bored. Yeah. Dinner's in an hour. Come down and help your mom. Okay. Footsteps faded. I sat on the floor, heart hammering, sweat dripping down my back. I waited a long time before I opened the closet. Sophie was sitting with her arms wrapped around her knees, eyes wide. Same voice, she whispered. I thought I'd never hear it again. And now it's like I'm back there. I wanted to cry. That night, after Dad fell asleep in his recliner like he always did, I snuck downstairs and found Mom. She was sitting at the table, drinking tea with shaking hands. Her eyes flicked up when she saw me. Then quickly back down. Something passed between us. A crack in the silence. She's back, I said. My voice was flat. Emotionless. Mom didn't move. She got out. She's in my room. Still nothing. I stepped closer. You let it happen. At that, she flinched. A slight, involuntary jerk. Like someone had slapped her. I tried, she said finally. Her voice was paper thin. You don't know what he's capable of. She was a child. Mom's eyes welled up. But she didn't cry. Not really. She never did. I brought her food. When I could. I gave her blankets. I told him she was sick, that she should see a doctor. He told me if I spoke again, he'd make her disappear for real. So you said nothing. For 3 years. I was scared, she whispered. I stared at her for a long time. Then I said, "You're going to help me get her out of here." She blinked. I don't care if you're scared. I don't care what he'll do. I'm getting her out, and if you try to stop me, I swear I'll burn this house to the ground. Something shifted in her eyes. Maybe guilt. Maybe relief. Maybe both. She nodded. Just once. The next day, we started planning. We couldn't go to the police. Not yet. If Dad found out, he'd run. Take Sophie with him. He always talked about bug-out plans and what to do when the government turns on you. He had cash in a jar, a getaway car, maps in the glove box. But Mom had a cousin in Illinois. Someone she trusted. Someone who hated Dad. We could send Sophie there. Hide her. Keep her safe. The problem was Caleb. He couldn't know. Not yet. He still worshipped Dad. Sought him as a protector, not a prison guard. If we told him the truth, there was a real chance he'd tell Dad everything. So we kept it secret. Every night, I snuck food to Sophie. Helped her bathe. Let her sleep in my bed while I took the floor. And every morning, I watched Dad go out to the shed with a tray. Only now it was empty. He'd open the lock, step inside, then come out 5 minutes later with a satisfied look on his face. Sophie said he was pretending. Still feeding the ghost. And then, one night, he opened the shed, walked in, and stopped. He didn't come out. Not for 10 minutes. Not for 30. When he did, his face was different. Harder. Colder. He knew. He didn't say anything at first. That was the worst part. He just came back inside, locked the front door, poured himself a drink, and sat at the table. No TV. No phone. Just silence. Mom kept glancing at him while she stirred a pot of soup, her hand trembling. Caleb hadn't come home yet. It was just the 3 of us. Me. Mom. And him. I sat down across from him, trying not to breathe too loud. His eyes scanned me. Up and down. Like he was memorizing me. You sleep all right last night? He asked casually. Yeah. Funny. I didn't. I said nothing. Had a dream, he continued. That something precious of mine was stolen. He sipped his drink. Let the ice clink in the glass. When I woke up, I went to check. And guess what? My mouth went dry. She was gone. I looked at Mom. She stared into the soup pot like it held all the answers. I thought maybe an animal got her, Dad said, voice still calm. But there was no blood. No broken boards. Locks were still on. Another sip. And that means someone let her out. His eyes landed on me. I think you know something about that. Don't you, Eli? I opened my mouth. Closed it. He leaned forward slowly. You forget who pays for the roof over your head, boy? I forced myself to speak. I don't know what you're talking about. He smiled. A slow, twisted thing. Lying doesn't suit you. That night, I barely slept. I locked my door, pushed a chair under the knob, and kept a pocket knife under my pillow. Sophie was still hidden in my closet. Breathing shallow. Shaking. We didn't talk. Didn't dare. Just waited. The next day, Dad didn't go to work. He stayed home. Sick, he told Caleb. But I knew better. He was watching. Waiting. He searched the yard twice. Opened the shed. Shut it again. Walked the perimeter with a shotgun in one hand and a cigarette in the other. Sophie curled into a ball under a pile of blankets and whispered, "We need to leave. Now." She was right. Mom called her cousin. Arranged everything. If we could get Sophie to the bus station, she could take a Greyhound out of state. Be gone by midnight. Start over. The problem? The car keys were always with Dad. But I knew where he kept the spare. Behind the water heater. Inside an old coffee can. I grabbed them while he was taking a shower. We packed nothing. Just the clothes on Sophie's back, and a coat that didn't fit. At 10:32 p.m., I opened the back door and peeked outside. Clear. I turned back. "Sophie, go." She hesitated. Then. A creak behind us. The floorboard. He was there. Dad stepped into the hallway, shirtless, holding a baseball bat in one hand and a lighter in the other. "You think you're clever?" he hissed. Sophie screamed. I grabbed her hand and ran. We bolted for the back door. I felt the wind of the bat swing behind me, missed by inches. Mom stepped in front of him, shouting, "Stop! Stop this!" He shoved her so hard she hit the floor. I heard the crack of something breaking. But we were already out the door. Running through the yard. Into the woods. My lungs on fire. Sophie crying behind me. The keys in my hand. The shed behind us. And Dad, roaring like an animal. We made it to the car. I unlocked it, shoved Sophie in, jumped into the driver's seat, and the engine sputtered. Dead. No. No, come on. It wouldn't start. Then headlights exploded behind us. His truck. He was coming. I yanked the door open. Run. We dove into the woods. Thorns tore at my arms. Branches slapped my face. My shoes filled with mud. But I didn't stop. Sophie was falling behind, gasping. I can't. You can. Keep going. Behind us, the truck door slammed. I heard footsteps. Heavy, crashing through the underbrush. A flashlight beam swept through the trees. I know you're out there, he shouted. She's mine. You hear me? She's mine. We ducked behind a fallen log. Held our breath. The beam passed inches above our heads. Then silence. Then the click of the shotgun. Next one ain't gonna miss, he growled. I clutched Sophie's hand and whispered, we wait. Then we move. It felt like hours before he left. But eventually, the flashlight faded. The footsteps disappeared. The engine started and drove off. We didn't go back. We walked through the forest. All night. Eventually, we reached the gas station where Caleb worked. He was on shift. When he saw us, covered in dirt, scratched, bleeding, Sophie limping, he froze. Then his eyes went wide. What the hell happened? I looked him straight in the eyes. You want the truth? He nodded slowly. Then call the police. Caleb didn't move. Just stared. First at me. Then at Sophie. His face turned white. Sophie. She nodded. Barely. Tears filled his eyes. I thought you were dead. I almost was, she said, voice hoarse. Because of him. The world shifted in that moment. Something cracked inside Caleb. You could see it, like the wires had crossed and everything he believed about our father short-circuited. He pulled out his phone. Dialed 911. My sister's been held prisoner by our father for 3 years, he said. She escaped. She needs help. We all do. The paramedics arrived 10 minutes later. Sophie was wrapped in a thermal blanket and loaded into the ambulance. She kept asking for me. Stay with her, Caleb said. I'll deal with the cops. I nodded and climbed into the back of the ambulance, gripping her hand. It was the first time we'd been under actual lights in days. Weeks. She looked worse than I realized. Pale. Emaciated. Bruises in various stages of healing. Her eyes red and sunken. She flinched every time the medic moved too fast. Trauma, one of them whispered. God. She's just a kid. I didn't speak. Couldn't. At the hospital, they took Sophie into a separate room. I was left in the waiting area, pacing like a trapped animal. Every time the door opened, I jerked my head toward it, half expecting Dad to come storming in, shotgun in hand. Instead, it was Caleb. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 2 hours. They're arresting him, he said quietly. My knees almost buckled. They got him driving around the neighborhood, Caleb continued. Still had the shotgun in the truck. Said he was looking for a runaway dog. Did he fight them? No. Just smiled. Said we'd regret it. I sat down, head in my hands. Caleb sat next to me. I didn't know, Eli. I swear. I thought she ran away. He told me she stole money. That she was trouble. That Mom couldn't take it anymore. He lied to all of us. I should have questioned it. But he was Dad. Silence. I'm sorry, he whispered. The hospital staff were incredible. Sophie was admitted for malnourishment, dehydration, infection, and what they called complex PTSD. They assigned her a social worker, a trauma counselor, and put her on a high-calorie recovery plan. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand as she slept. Sometimes she'd twitch. Whisper things in her sleep. No more cold, she muttered once. Another time, she cried silently for 15 minutes. But when she woke up, she squeezed my hand. I don't want to go back, she whispered. You won't, I promised. And for once, I believed it. The police came 2 days later to take my statement. A detective named Morales sat with me in a quiet room. She was calm. Empathetic. But direct. I need to ask some hard questions, she said. I'm ready. And I was. I told her everything. About the day Sophie vanished. About Dad's story. About the shed. The noises. The rules. The lies. About the night she came back. The failed escape. The chase through the woods. She listened. Took notes. Do you know if your mother was involved? I hesitated. She didn't stop it. But she didn't cause it. That'll be up to the DA. Don't charge her, I said. She's broken. But she helped us get out. Morales nodded slowly. I'll note it in the report. But this is serious. Long-term imprisonment. Child abuse. Psychological torture. I know. She closed her notebook. One last question, she said. Do you think he'll try to find her again? I didn't hesitate. Yes. We didn't go back home. Not even to pack. The hospital helped us find a temporary shelter for Sophie. Caleb moved in with his girlfriend. I stayed with Sophie. We didn't talk much those first few days. Just existed in the same space, like wild animals learning to trust light again. But slowly, she started to come back. One morning, she asked for eggs. Another, she laughed when I dropped toast on the floor and cursed like an idiot. Every little thing felt like a miracle. Then came the news Dad had posted bail. Someone in town. One of his old buddies. Paid for it. He was out. Just like that. Free. We weren't. Sophie didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. The shelter moved us to a safer location. Somewhere farther away, unlisted. Police installed a panic button. Social workers checked on us daily. But we knew. He was out there. Somewhere. And we were still his unfinished business. It started with a letter. No stamp. No return address. Just our names. Scribbled in that familiar, angry handwriting. The shelter's staff found it taped to the front gate one morning. Inside was a photo. Sophie, age 7. Sitting on the porch in a yellow dress, smiling shyly. On the back, written in thick black marker. I remember what you took. That day, Sophie stopped eating again. I started sleeping with a baseball bat beside my mattress. The police increased patrols. The shelter changed locks. But none of it mattered. Because he wasn't breaking in. He was reminding us that he could anytime he wanted. And that was worse. Then came the second letter. This time, addressed to Caleb. It was hand-delivered. No one saw who brought it. Inside, a folded page from the Bible. Honor thy father and thy mother. Written beneath, in the same familiar scrawl. You're next. Caleb called me right after. His voice shook. I think I'm being followed, he said. I saw a truck like his outside work. Did you tell the cops? They can't do anything unless he threatens me directly. That is a threat. Not on paper. I cursed. He lowered his voice. I don't know what to do, Eli. A part of me still wants to believe he's not a monster. I didn't say anything. Because I knew exactly what that felt like. Mom finally called. Her voice was dry. Empty. Like someone scraping metal across concrete. I got a visitor yesterday, she said. I didn't ask who. He told me to tell you something. Said if Sophie testifies in court, there won't be a court. My blood ran cold. You need to tell the police, I said. They already know. Then why are you calling me? She paused. Because I want to say I'm sorry. I nearly dropped the phone. For what? For not opening the shed door. I couldn't speak. I heard her. Every night. For 3 years. And I did nothing. I clenched the phone. She's alive, I said finally. And she'll stay that way. If you really mean it, then help us. Mom exhaled, shaky. I'll testify. A week later, Sophie had her first panic attack. We were walking to the clinic for her trauma therapy session when a car backfired. She dropped to the ground, curled into a ball, and started screaming. It took 3 people to calm her down. The doctor increased her medication. But I could see it. The fear was back. Worse than ever. That night, she asked me, do you think he'll kill me before the trial? I couldn't lie. I think he'll try. She nodded slowly. I'm tired of being afraid. Me too. She looked at me, eyes hollow. Then maybe we stop waiting. The next morning, we went to the police. I asked Detective Morales to meet us. We want to testify, I said. Morales raised an eyebrow. That's already scheduled. No, I said. Now. In advance. A full deposition. Record it. In case. In case he kills you, she finished. I nodded. To her credit, she didn't flinch. She set it up. 2 days later, we sat in a cold, quiet room with a camera running. And Sophie told everything. Every single thing. She told them about the first night. The moment the shed door slammed. The hunger. The cold. The beatings. The rules. The screams no one came for. She talked for 3 hours. By the end, everyone in the room was crying. Even Morales. That night, another letter arrived. No threats this time. Just one sentence. If I can't have her, no one will. We knew what that meant. It was time to disappear. For real this time. The shelter's legal team made arrangements. New names. New IDs. Emergency relocation through a protective survivor network. It meant leaving everything. The trial. The house. Caleb. Even Mom. But it meant life. Sophie hesitated. If we run now, she said, does that mean he wins? No, I said. It means he doesn't get to finish what he started. She thought about that. Then packed her bag. We became ghosts. Sophie became Emily Hart. I became Jason Hart, her legal guardian. We were placed in a small town 2 states away, population under 10,000. A church on every corner, a diner that closed at 6 p.m., and a sheriff who knew everyone by name. Perfect place to disappear. At least, that's what they told us. The relocation team gave us new papers, IDs, a furnished apartment, and strict instructions. No social media. No phone numbers tied to our past. No talking to anyone about where we came from. We obeyed. The apartment was small but clean. 1 bedroom, 2 beds, chipped tiles, and a window with a view of nothing. But for the first time, the air didn't feel like poison. We breathed. Sophie started school under her new name. She didn't speak much. Sat at the back of every classroom. But she passed her classes. And the counselor said she was trying. Sometimes I caught her drawing in a notebook. Scenes from the past. A girl in a shed. A house in the woods. A man with no face. But also new things. A swing. A dog. A girl laughing. Hope and horror on the same page. I found work bussing tables at a diner. It was boring, repetitive, and paid little. But it was anonymous. And that's all we wanted. People here were kind. Curious, but not pushy. I told them we'd lost our parents in a fire. No one asked more than once. 3 months passed. No letters. No calls. No threats. Sophie smiled. Once. Then again. I let myself believe we were safe. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, it happened. Sophie was walking home from school. I was 20 minutes behind, just off work. She called me. Whispered. Terrified. He's here. I froze. Where? I saw him. At the bus stop. He was just standing there. Watching. Same coat. Same eyes. I broke into a sprint. By the time I got to the street, he was gone. Sophie was curled up on the curb, shaking. No one else around. I looked everywhere. Nothing. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe it was someone who just looked like him. Maybe trauma played tricks. But deep down I knew. He had found us. Again. We called our contact at the relocation program. They moved us the next morning. Another town. Another identity change. Another apartment. Sophie was done pretending. I'm tired of hiding, she told me. I want him to be locked away. Forever. We tried. The system let him walk. Then we break it. We reached out to Morales. Told her we were ready. Ready to return. Ready to testify. Ready to finish this. It would be dangerous. He would come for us. But running meant nothing if he never stopped chasing. We weren't prey anymore. The DA reopened the case. Sophie's deposition. My testimony. Mom's statement. Photos. Medical records. Shed evidence. It was enough. A trial date was set. Security was arranged. Police escort. Safe hotel. Press blackout. The world was about to see the man behind the perfect suburban mask. And he knew it. Because that night we got the final letter. Slipped under our hotel door. No words. Just a photo. Me. Sleeping. From outside the window. The courthouse smelled like bleach and old carpet. Sophie sat beside me, knees bouncing. Her hands clenched in her lap. I'd never seen her so still and so alive at the same time. Across the aisle, he sat. My father. Clean-shaven. Wearing a blue suit that didn't fit. He looked ordinary. Average. And somehow that made him more terrifying. Because we knew the monster beneath the skin. His lawyer was sharp. A former prosecutor turned defense specialist. They were going for mental illness. A break from reality. Delusional fixation. A loving father who snapped after losing a child. It was all lies. We had the truth. And this time, people were listening. Sophie testified first. The courtroom was silent as she spoke. No tears. No theatrics. Just facts. I was locked in a shed for 3 years, she said. I was fed once a day. If I disobeyed, I was beaten. If I spoke, I was punished. My mother watched it happen. My brothers didn't know. He told me the world forgot me. I believed him. Someone in the gallery gasped. The judge didn't interrupt. She let Sophie speak. And Sophie did. For 47 minutes. At the end, she looked directly at Dad. I'm not afraid of you anymore, she said. He didn't blink. Then I took the stand. I told them about the disappearance. The lies. The shed. The night she came back. The chase through the woods. The photo outside our hotel. The prosecutor asked me, "Why are you doing this?" I looked at Sophie. Because I refused to let him be the last voice in our story. Mom testified next. I didn't know if she'd show. But she did. Hair pulled back. Black dress. Hands trembling. I failed her, she said. Every day. I heard her cry. I looked away. I convinced myself I had no choice. Did you know what your husband was doing? The prosecutor asked. Yes. Why didn't you stop it? She closed her eyes. Because I thought if I tried, he'd kill us both. Do you still fear him? She opened her eyes. No. Not anymore. Because they're not afraid. And if they can face him, so can I. The defense called their own witnesses. Neighbors who said we were a quiet family. A doctor who claimed Dad showed signs of dissociative disorder. But the jury didn't buy it. You could see it on their faces. They believed us. The final day came. Closing arguments. Then silence. The jury was out for 4 hours. When they returned, we stood. 12 faces. No smiles. The foreperson read the verdict. Guilty. On all counts. Sophie exhaled. I gripped the railing. Mom started crying silently behind us. The judge's voice rang out. Sentenced to life without parole. Just like that. It was over. Almost. As he was led from the courtroom, Dad turned to look at us. Not rage. Not sadness. Just nothing. He didn't scream. Didn't beg. Didn't speak. Just stared. Like we were strangers. Then he was gone. The world came knocking after that. News outlets. Documentaries. Survivors. They called Sophie the girl in the shed. She hated that. I don't want to be a headline, she told me. I want to be a person. So we left again. Not to hide. But to start over. For real this time. We moved to a small city near the coast. Sophie finished high school online. Then she enrolled in college. Psychology. She wants to help kids like her. She keeps a photo on her desk. Not of the shed. Not of Dad. But of all four of us, me, her, Caleb, and even Mom, sitting around a dinner table, smiling. The first photo we ever took together after the truth. A real family. No secrets. No fear. I went back to school too. Writing, of all things. I'm working on a book. It starts with a knock at a second-story window. We still have bad days. Sophie jumps at fireworks. I keep a bat by the door. Mom lives alone now. Quiet, distant. She sends letters sometimes. Sophie reads them. I don't. But mostly, we live. That's the miracle. We. Still. Live. And sometimes. I walk past sheds. Old, forgotten ones. And I wonder. How many other Sophies are still waiting, still hoping? Still locked away? So I tell this story. Because silence was what kept her trapped. And truth. Truth is what set her free.